East Asia includes the modern nations and regions of China, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and Taiwan, and is home to around 20% of the global population, more than 1.5 billion people, with a rich history and vibrant culture. In this video, we will learn more about the interconnected history of countries known today as China, North and South Korea, and Japan. We will explore China's critical middle period, the Sui and early Tang dynasties, and we will discover how geography, government, and belief systems link these modern nations. Although dynasties had existed in ancient China as far back as 1600 BCE, the first successful attempt to centralize power on a much larger geographical scale in China came under the leadership of Shi Huangdi, who established the Qin Empire. Although short-lived, the Qin had a lasting impact, forged through military conquest and annexation of 6 states. They used the ideology called legalism in order to unify people under one ruler and one rule of law. To further unify the empire, weights, measurements, and written language were standardized, highways and roads were built, and defense walls were linked, becoming the basis of the Great Wall. A royal mausoleum for the first emperor was constructed, where today you can see the famous terracotta soldiers. But during the Qin dynasty, opposing views were severely suppressed. And these developments came at a cost to the tax-paying public, in part leading to the widespread rebellions that would help topple the Qin dynasty, making way for the Han dynasty. During Emperor Wu's reign, the Han Empire expanded through conquest into North Korea and northern Vietnam. Unlike the Qin dynasty, the Han dynasty was initially divided into 2 halves. The western half was governed by governors and magistrates appointed by Gaozu, the first emperor of Han, but the eastern half was given to various sons and generals who helped Gaozu establish the Han dynasty during the Civil War. These semi-autonomous kingdoms and princedoms were gradually reduced in number, size, and power in order to increase the centralization of the empire. The state adopted the ideology of Confucianism, a philosophical and ethical system based on the teachings of Confucius, emphasizing moral integrity, familial respect, education, and social harmony. The establishment of the Silk Routes connected China with Central Asia, enabling goods, people, and ideas to travel widely between these regions. While innovations and inventions like paper and the wider use of iron tools increased agricultural production and facilitated this trade. The Sui and early Tang dynasties inherited many of the political institutions and cultural traditions of the Qin and Han. Multilingual, multicultural, and cosmopolitan, they promoted Confucianism and Buddhism, and established a relationship with Korea and Japan. In this section, we will examine the 3 kingdoms that emerged on the Korean peninsula when China was ruled under the Qin. Korea, China's neighbor to the northeast, was ruled by a number of warring chiefdoms and tribes. But that all changed with the emergence of Korea's 3 kingdoms: Goguryeo in the north, Bakshi in the southwest, and Shilla in the southeast. Control for the Korean peninsula was a struggle. Just like in China, power became centralized in 3 kingdoms. In each, the king shared his authority with a hierarchical aristocracy of provincial governors and tribal leaders, who collected taxes from the predominantly poor population of farmers. Korea's belief systems were also influenced by China. While shamanism had been Korea's prevalent belief system, Confucianism, along with other imported ideologies such as Taoism and Buddhism, spread throughout the kingdoms. There were frequent cultural exchanges with China as well. Each kingdom would send ambassadors, artists, and scholars to China to learn and share new ideas and concepts. They adopted the Chinese writing system, used Chinese coins, and many other cultural practices. But the three kingdoms resisted Chinese incursions into Korean territory. That is, until the late 600 CE, when the Shilla Kingdom unified the Korean peninsula with the assistance of China's Tang Dynasty, bringing the Three Kingdoms period to an end. With China as the dominant power in East Asia, it is no surprise that Japan's ruler, Prince Shotoku, would also adopt a variation of Chinese centralized rule. A benevolent leader and devout Buddhist, Shotoku did not want to just copy the Chinese governmental structure and institutions, but rather adapt them for the needs of the Japanese people. Shotoku centralized the power by cracking down on corruption and phasing out the hereditary transfer of power among ruling families. Cultural exchange continued into Japan as emissaries were sent to China to bring back the best of its teachings, including a Chinese-style calendar and Chinese writing system, which would lead to an unprecedented historical period of documentation in Japan and a written constitution. From the study of Buddhism, many Japanese people learned to read classical Chinese, allowing the sharing of ideas on government, philosophy, and culture. Buddhism also intermingled with Japan's existing belief systems. Japan has traditionally been given a greater role in the historical development of East Asia, and the importance of Korea in the history of this region has been underplayed. Today, we recognize that Korea was the critical conduit that helped to spread Chinese ideas and culture to Japan. The impact of China on the region is undeniable. Chinese culture, government, and economics heavily influenced both Japan and Korea. However, the interconnected development and changing relationships of these three nations is critical to understanding their history.